Welcome to Heavenly Creations. Today I'm going to be showing you how to make these railroad train themed cupcake decorations. To make the Thomas Tank Engine, what we're first going to do is roll out some blue fondant. I have a circle cutter and it's about the size of the top of a cupcake. I'm going to cut out this, and then I'm going to take a smaller circle and cut out the center. There's no point in wasting fondant because we don't need it to be solid. Okay, then set that aside. Then I'm going to roll out some red fondant, which I've already done, and I'm going to cut a rectangle out of it. Just like that. And there's lots of little parts to this, so some of these I've done ahead so that we don't have to sit here all day. You'll also want to cut out a small rectangular piece of black fondant. Then using this smaller circle, which can be two different sizes, you're going to cut out a black piece and then cut out the center of it as well. You're also going to want to cut out 2 white circles and 2 yellow circles. The white and yellow circles, I used a piping tip, a 2A piping tip, to make the circles out of that because they're the perfect size. And then you're going to want to cut out a half moon shape of black and a half moon shape of white. Once you've got everything cut out, then it's time to start assembling it. So we're going to take our blue fondant and we're going to wet it down. We're going to take our black fondant and place it on top. Oh, I forgot a color, so we'll do this. We'll place these on here, then we're going to put our yellow pieces to the side like this. And then we're going to take our red and it goes down below. Like so. Our black piece goes up here, and we dampen down the top of that black piece and stick this kind of like a little top hat on there. Then we're also going to need to set that aside, and we're going to need to roll out some gray fondant here. So we'll do this real quick. There's a lot that goes into this, but they're cute and fun when you get them done. We're going to cut out a circle with the gray fondant. Then we're going to bring what we've made back into the picture here. We're going to dampen up the black part that we laid down. Stick the gray on top. Then we're going to want to dampen up the gray part as well. Make sure that it sticks. Then we're going to take our 2 white circles, put those on, and our white half circle. And then I have a black edible marker and I'm going to draw little eyes on here. And you can have them pointing any direction that you want. I'm going to have mine looking off to the side. And there you go. There's the little Thomas the Tank Engine topper. And you're going to want to let that sit for a little bit and let it firm up and stick to itself. And then you can sit that right on top of a cupcake. To make the railroad crossing sign, we're going to take some yellow fondant and roll it out pretty thin. In fact, I'm going to take these little wedges off the rolling pin so that I can get it even thinner. One thing you can do to make sure that your fondant doesn't stick to your surface is keep flipping it as you're rolling it. That way it won't stick to whatever surface you're rolling it on. The other thing you can do is you can use Crisco shortening, white Crisco shortening. That will also help it not stick. Then I have some circle cutter that I've put a little bit of Crisco around the edge of, and I'm going to cut out a few circles here. Looks like we can get 4 out of this section. Peel away the extra. We're going to set these aside so that we can do our black section now. And I'm going to take our black fondant, and we're going to roll it out pretty thin as well. And we're going to do 2 things with our black fondant. We're going to make it into the little black pieces that go across to kind of form the X of the railroad crossing sign, and we're also going to be cutting out an R, the little letter R, 2 R's to make the railroad part. So I have a little R cutter. I'm going to cut out a few R's. They're kind of hard to cut out. Sometimes they stick to the cutter, in which case I've found that using something like a knife to just gently push it out is helpful. And then we're going to cut a few of the lines which we're going to use for going across the circle. So I'll cut those. They don't need to be real wide. You need 2 per circle. So we got a couple here. And then you're going to grab your yellow circle again. See if we can do this. And we're going to wet it down a little bit with just a little bit of water. Going to take our 2 black strips. We're going to put them at an angle, and if they're too long, then you just cut them off so that they fit perfectly onto the circle. And you're going to need to dab the middle of that black. You kind of want to push it down so that it sticks. Then we're going to take our little R's. We may have to cut the little center of the R out a little bit more, depending on how well your cutter did. So I'm going to put 1 R on this side. And then get our other little R that we had over here. Cut the little center out of it again. And put it on the other side. Just like that. Perfect. Then you have your little railroad sign that goes directly on top of a cupcake. To make the railroad tracks, first we're going to take some brown fondant that I've already colored brown. We're going to roll it out to relatively thin, but not too thin. And then I'm going to cut out, for each railroad track set, I'm going to cut out 3 railroad wooden ties. So they're going to be, you can make them as big or as small as you want. I think I'm going to make mine about that big. And then while they're sitting here, I'm just kind of going to squiggle on them a little with my knife so that they're not perfectly smooth. So they kind of look like they have some grain in them. I'm going to peel this away. So there I have my railroad ties. I'm going to set these aside for a second. Now I'm going to take some of my black gray fondant, and I'm going to roll it out, but I'm not going to roll it out really thin. And then I'm going to cut out 2 railroad tracks. And they don't need to be perfect, because what I'm going to actually do with them is kind of form them into like what looks like an actual railroad track. So they're going to be kind of raised, kind of thick, not perfectly square. So I'm just kind of forming these so they're not perfectly square. And then I'm going to take my railroad ties again. I'm going to lay them out. I'm actually going to lay these out on a piece of wax paper so that I can pick them up easier when I'm ready to put them on my cupcakes. So I'm going to lay my railroad ties out kind of evenly. And then I'm just going to dab a little bit of water onto each end of both of all the ties. And then I'm going to take my tracks, I'm going to lay them over and kind of push them down where the water is, just like this. And there you have your railroad tracks. And then once that's kind of set up for a little while, you can put that on a cupcake and decorate some grass coming out around them, or little flowers or whatever to go with your railroad themed cupcakes. I hope you enjoyed trying to make these. They're fun for birthday parties, especially for like little boys' birthday parties. The Thomas Tank Engine and the railroad crossing sign and these railroad tracks. They're just fun to add to a cupcake party or just for fun. Thanks for your views and your subscriptions. I hope you have fun making these.